Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. Today is a doozy, man. Got a lot of great questions. Had a lot going on lately. Brent Hinds is no longer in Mastodon. We'll be talking about that. Bobby Liebling, aka Count Crackula, has gone viral. So we'll be talking about the implications of that. I'll be discussing a really killer death metal album that just came out of Denmark, who seem to be cranking them out lately. I'll be playing the best riffs of 1971 as part of my new favorite segment, where I'm playing the best riffs of every year starting in 1970. Shouldn't shock anybody what band it'll be, but stick around for that. Lots of stuff to discuss today. But first, some news, some exciting news. Spirit Adrift is returning to the stage. I'll throw the flyer up right here. May 31st, Saturday, at Empire in Austin. We haven't played Austin since 2022. We haven't played a show since September or October 2023. Wild, man. We're ready to get back at it. So that's a Saturday, no excuses, May 31st. It's 18 and up. You can get tickets right now at spiritadrift.com. This will be our only show in North America this year. We're doing some UK and Europe stuff. We've announced a few of those things. More announcements coming up on that. But if you're in North America and you want to see us this year, this is your only opportunity. So if you've been looking for an excuse to come to Austin or an excuse to go on a trip in general, or you haven't seen us and want to, this is it, man, for this year. We're going to do some stuff in Europe this summer, and then we're hibernating to work on the new record for real. We will be joined on Saturday, May 31st by High Desert Queen. Great old school hard rock, kind of Caius-y. I would say it's for fans of Baroness and Queens of the Stone Age and Caius, and cool guitar stuff and great powerful vocals and drumming and just kind of a powerhouse old school riff oriented hard rock band. Also Mean Mistreater, who I've discussed several times on this podcast. Kick-ass old school, no frills, heavy metal, traditional heavy metal. Somehow we have assembled a bill with three bands that have exclusively clean vocals in 2025. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. Get your tickets at spiritadrift.com. It's a cool little Venn diagram between these three bands. We spent a lot of time and put a lot of thought into who do we want on this gig. And I feel like if you made a three-way Venn diagram, we got all of riff-driven old school metal covered. It's sort of three different takes on that. But if you like metal, just straight up metal, it would be hard not to hear something that you like that night. So we'll see you Saturday, May 31st. It's been a long time since I've been psyched on playing a Spirit Adrift set, but we've put together a set that's really solid. We're bringing back some material that we haven't played since like the Curse of Conception era. And just really going for it. I wrote a bunch of interludes and recorded a bunch of interludes to make it kind of like a seamless experience. I don't want to give away too much, but I'm just saying, it's been a long, long time since I was really fired up playing these songs. And some of these older songs, I have a totally new relationship with them, and I like them a lot more. I like playing them a lot more than I remember. So we're excited, man. We can't wait for that. I'll talk about it just briefly, and then we can get into all the crazy stuff that's been going on. It's weird. There's been nothing going on in the metal world of any interest to me whatsoever this whole year. And then in 1 week, all kinds of interesting stuff happens, But yeah, first, people have been asking me a lot over the past year or so what's been going on with Spirit Adrift. And we just took a break. I've been writing the whole time. I wanted to do the Neon Nightmare thing, which those of you who know me, if I'm doing something, it's got 100% of my focus. I don't go 80-20 or 50-50 on anything. If I'm doing something, that's what I'm doing. So that was my approach toward the Neon Nightmare thing. I really wanted to do that right. And honestly, that kind of grew into more of a responsibility than I anticipated in a good way. But yeah, 2023, Spirit Adrift put a record out, And then, we played Download with Metallica headlining and got to see them. And also Municipal Waste, which was sick. We were kind of bouncing running into Municipal Waste all over Europe on that little run, which was cool. We were on a lot of the same fests. So it was really fun. And then we played Hellfest and Iron Maiden headlined. So these are just like surreal moments for me, like adolescent dreams, getting to play on the same bill as Metallica and Iron Maiden at these like the coolest possible places that you could be seeing these bands, the best possible experience. We get home, we did some shows with Wake and Pallbearer, which are like two of my favorite bands from the Arkansas thing and from that period of my life. So that was super meaningful in an entirely different way, in a more kind of personal way. And then we played that West Coast Metal Injection and got to see Fear Factory doing a set that was only Obsolete and Demanufacture, which were like great albums for me when I was 13. I still love them, but when I was 13, that was the shit, And then got to see Testament play the first two records from start to finish, which are two of my all-time favorite records. And I just remember at the end of the year and after that show, we were getting offers to do stuff, and I'm just like, why? I'll be honest. I'm kind of like, there's a business side of things where you should stay active and you should tour off a record and do this and that. But there's another side of it, which is like, do I want to do any of this? And I don't want to disparage anybody, so I won't specifically mention like what we were getting offered or what was wrong with the offers or what was wrong with the people involved or whatever. But I'm just like looking at what we had done over the course of that year, which was very selective, but it was all so meaningful. I was just like, unless something is as meaningful as that, I don't think I want to do it. I'll stay home and write, So that's what I did for like a year. But we're back, man. There's like a whole different vibe. There's a whole different energy. The excitement is back in everybody. The vibe is there. Like I said, the set is like, I can't remember the last time I was playing a Spirit Adrift set and having fun. You get to a point where you're just going through the motions. But I don't know. I feel like my playing has even improved a lot. I stepped away from any Spirit Adrift old material this entire time. I haven't played an old song since that fest, that Metal Injection Fest. I've been writing and stuff, but yeah, there's just a newfound energy. I'm playing the songs better. So we decided it's time. We're going to Europe this summer. We already announced Bloodstock and a festival in Italy or Portugal and a festival in Germany. So check those out. But we wanted to do, I guess, like a hometown show. And it's going to be, again, our only show in North America this year. So that's enough on that. Get your tickets, spiritadrift.com. Let's make it a really memorable experience. We're going to be back at it, next year with the new record and stuff. But this is the only opportunity to see us in North America this year. So we'll see you there, man. Okay, let's get to these questions. Still don't know how to say your name. Irish, I guess. Yoan. Yeah, I don't know. You send me like a voice memo and tell me how to say your name, dude. I just wanted to bring to your attention from a big Riff Energy street reporter / enforcer, the news of Bobby Liebling trending on social media. The amount of defending and sympathizing I've seen has been bananas. There's a whole new crop of Bobby Liebling fans ready to die for this man. LOL. I'm staying diligent in these big Riff streets, doing my civil duty in the name of the Riff dodging crackheads, cracking skulls. Signing off for now. Yeah, so it's funny because I've been listening to a ton of Pentagram lately. I always listen to Pentagram, but especially lately. And I've spoken about my feelings on Bobby ad nauseum, so no need to do that. But the going viral thing is weird, man. There's a bit of a tendency to be like, when something quote unquote good happens to a really shitty person, there's this sense of like, oh, how unjust or whatever. But first of all, I don't think going viral is good. I think honestly, in this day and age, going viral is like maybe one of the worst things that can happen to somebody. because no one will take you seriously after that initial explosion of stupidity, once it used to be 5 minutes of fame. Now it's like 30 seconds of fame. And once that goes away, it's like you are forever branded as some novelty, jokey thing, And is it going to affect a band like Pentagram or a guy like that? Not really. But this tendency to be like, oh, that's not fair. The world is unjust or whatever. You will just tie yourself in knots living that way. The only thing you can do is carry a sense of fairness and a sense of justice in yourself. But to expect the world to work that way, it's literally never going to happen. It's never going to happen. The way that this social media shit seems to work, and I can attest to the fact that the way the music industry works is 98% of the time, the worst people are the people getting rewarded. And I'll say rewarded in quotes because I genuinely don't believe that going viral is good. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it'll translate into any kind of tangible benefit, in this situation. One thing, I was looking at some comments on, I think it was like a Doom specific Instagram page, like a Doom meme page or something like that. I'm shocked, man. I have a very, very, very low expectation when it comes to the intelligence of the general population. What did George Carlin say? He said, think about how dumb the average person is and then realize that 50% of people are fucking dumber than that. Now I think it's like, I don't know. There were comments. This is like a Doom specific Instagram page, and the ignorance of these comments was like astounding to me. And I don't know if this is people who have brain rot from the 5-second attention span world that we live in or what, but people were like publicly asking, why do Pentagram songs sound kind of similar over the years, even though it's all different lineups? Does Bobby write? And I'm like, holy shit. Like, we have to bring back gatekeeping. We have to bring back legitimately calling people posers and making them feel bad. We have to. It's gone too far. Things in society seem to swing like a pendulum, too far one way, too far the other way. And I don't know, maybe people felt like there was a time where there was too much gatekeeping and too much calling people posers and too much making people feel unwelcome in the metal scene. But if you are going on a public platform with no shame whatsoever about asking the dumbest possible question that you could ever ask about the band Pentagram, we need to start making these people feel bad. And it'll help them. We can bully them into actually knowing about the bands that they seem to be interested in. It'll make them appreciate the music even more. It'll make them have a greater appreciation for the whole thing. It is interesting that Bobby Liebling writes music for Pentagram. The whole story is interesting. But like, we have to start making people feel bad about being posers again. I just couldn't believe some of the comments. Couldn't believe it. Back in my day, you would be fucking ashamed to ask a question like that. You would be ridiculed mercilessly by your friends, not your enemies, by your friends. And that's a better system. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I'll always love the band Pentagram. I'll always dislike that guy. But bottom line, like, it's bringing more attention to a cool style of music, so that's good. Is he the best ambassador? Absolutely not. But I can tell you that most dudes in metal bands fucking suck. And so it's just on what, like, how far on the suck spectrum are they, But I was trying to think of a better ambassador for doom metal. I love Wino. Is he a saint? No. Am I a saint? No. Yeah, there could be a better ambassador, but who cares? We're not going to have to deal with this dude that much longer. That's the bottom line. or he might outlive us all at this point. Who knows? Renee, good morning. Uh, oh yeah, Renee from Texas. Hopefully everything is well with you and your new project you're working on. I had a question that you may have already answered on your podcast, and if you did, forgive me. Can you explain what inspired you to write and arrange Living Light? Yes, Spirit Adrift question. That's fitting for today's episode. Yeah, Living Light is it the last song on Divided? It's either last or second to last. Carl Jung, the book that I was reading is called Memories, Dreams, Reflections. Uh, Aleister Crowley, you know, the occultist. I was really paying attention to what those two schools of thought have in common: the occult, chaos magic stuff, and the Carl Jung depth psychology, because there's like a massive overlap there. So lyrically, yeah, that was the inspiration. Mostly Carl Jung. There's some evil shit on Divided by Darkness, but Living Light, I think, is more kind of like about the quest for self actualization and stuff like that. The potential in every human being, or something like that. I don't know. Read the lyrics and see what they make you feel. Musically, I think the influences were probably like Wake, Mastodon, uh maybe like Mournful Congregation there at the end. I don't know. That song to me is very, very just like Spirit Adrift. Not every song that I write is I don't always get the feeling of like, whoa, like that's me. Like that's my style right there. Sometimes my stuff feels a little bit derivative even to me. But there are songs here and there where I'm like, that doesn't really feel like anything else. I think I came up with something that's just like totally me. And that's one of those songs for sure. For sure. But I think the most obvious influence there would be Wake from Arkansas. Yeah, hope that answers your question. Brandon, oh God. Yeah, questions about my favorite people on earth. Brandon, do you have any opinions? We said we weren't going to discuss this fucking loser anymore, but do you have any opinions on J Dawg from Hell's Headbangers? Not sure if you watch or have seen his YouTube content, but he seems insufferable at times. I used to love buying things from their store as a teenager, but I recently started watching his YouTube videos, and his homophobia and racism kind of makes me reconsider buying merch from Hell's Headbangers. I don't know if it's all just jokes or not, but I was just curious what your thoughts on him were, if you had any. Dude, honestly, the homophobia and the racism are the least offensive things about that fucking troll. And when I say troll, I mean like actual physical, like golem that has been animated out of like a pile of mud. You know, he's got that vibe. Yeah, I saw the racism and homophobia thing in the email, and I am almost impossible to offend. First of all, genetically, I'm all over the place, so I wouldn't even know like which races have to be offended, on which race's behalf to be offended. Like I don't even know. So, you know, I'm of the age that we grew up with Chappelle's Show and like hyper offensive shit. And even before that, you know, like Richard Pryor and folks like that. So, I mean, it's almost impossible to offend me with that kind of stuff. And these days, I feel like those tags get thrown around like on like people are super uptight. However, when you sent this email, I did kind of go revisit his channel, and it just is like sad. He's just trying very, very, very hard. It's weird to me for a guy in his 40s to be like desperately trying to be like this meme and this he yeah, but okay, so what's more offensive to me than racism and homophobia, way more offensive, is when somebody's a hypocrite and a false and a fraud, you know? I started watching his channel because people were asking if I could get him on as a guest. And I watched a few and I thought it was funny. You know, I think he's funny, honestly. I'm not offended by like the jokes and stuff like that. So I reached out to him. We've talked about this before. And I have the email. I don't want to post the emails on here, but depending on how hard we want to go, maybe I can. I have the receipts. And I was like, hey, man, want to come on the podcast? He was like, sure. We set up a time. And I don't know if he got scared that I was going to like ambush him or something. I know he checked out my channel. I don't know if he was intimidated because, you know, I'm not a genius, but this dude has like a 76 IQ, you know. I don't know what happened, but he just bailed at the last second, which normally is like whatever. But the fact that he goes on tirades like all the time on his channel about like, this guy bailed on an interview. I tried to write this label about this reissue and nobody can answer an email. People just don't even answer. They don't even pay attention. They don't even show up. I show up for everything. I'm responsible. I stay committed. You know, he preaches like incessantly on like honoring commitments and that sort of thing. And I can tell you, and I have proof if y'all want to see it, that he's a fraud. And it's funny too, because he talks a lot about people on the internet being frauds. Like this person's a fraud, that person's a fraud. So I believe we call that projection, you know. But it's just sad. It's sad to see a dude in his 40s not trying to, I hate to call it producing content. I hate it so much, but he's not trying to produce anything that betters his life or the lives of the people, you know, engaging in his content. He's just literally trying to be like a meme. It's like the lowest common denominator. It's just sad. I honestly, like, when he didn't show up to the interview, I was kind of like, fuck this guy, you know. It was kind of just like judgment of like, oh, okay, so he's a total hypocrite, false liar, like typical just bullshitter on the internet. But now, like when I went and watched like a couple of his latest videos, I legitimately feel bad for him. I would still get him on the show. I had some great questions for him. Like I was not going to ambush him. I wanted to ask him about, you know, growing up in Ohio, working class with brothers, mowing yards, getting, you know, chore money or whatever, working your part-time job and going and buying physical products and all that, because I'm sure we have that in common. But he pussed out. He's fucking scared of me. Real recognize real and false recognize real. You know what I'm saying? And real recognize false. And yeah, he's scared of me. I don't know. Bottom line, J Dawg is scared of me. And I'm not even fucking kidding. Like I know guys like him. I've known guys like him throughout my life, and I know how they operate. And he's a scared little boy. And if you're over the age of 15 and you're watching his content regularly, you need to really reassess your entire life. So that's the last thing I'm going to say about J Dawg. If he wants to come on here and squash it, if he wants to meet up in person and do an in-person interview and explain why he pussed out and why he's scared of me, I'm open to that too. We got a dude from India here, Ananth. Hey, Nate, longtime listener of your wonderful podcast, more of a silent observer than anything else. I finally got around to writing you. My name is Ananth, and I write to you from India. The first? I think you are, man. I have done interviews with dudes in India promoting records and stuff, but I think you're the first to write into the podcast. Got turned on to Spirit Adrift after watching a Ghost of the Gallows review on Sea of Tranquility. Right on, man. Okay, just saying a lot of nice stuff. I appreciate it. Okay, here's the question. This is going to be a little left field, but I would really value your opinion on this. Being primarily a prog rock fan, I listen to a lot of prog metal too, and ever since I have been ardently listening to you, I have been trying to get into extreme music. I can easily get through thrash, but the tougher genres I seem to tune out. So I guess my question is, how does one get to enjoy extreme music? Seeing your recent episode, I realized that I do like Pantera, but such things are few and far between. I suppose the main deterrent is the vocals that instantly turn me off, but I know there's a vast amount of instrumental prowess and beauty underneath it all. I just can't seem to get to it consistently. So as a wannabe extreme music fan, how do you think one should approach this? Maybe this question can be discarded as a victim of subjectivity, but then I cannot help but think that there's some objectivity to it, at least in terms of getting to the meat of extreme music. I mean, getting to the actual music setting, aside the politics, genre, etc. Can't think of anyone better to pose this question to, so here I am. Thanks for the music and the words, it all matters. Yeah, nobody comes out of the womb listening to Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and uh, Terrorizer and stuff like that. It is, I mean, people want to act like they did, but even, Poser Disposer J Dawg is honest about that. So, for me, it was like, I think the first real gateway into extreme music was Slayer, Rain and Blood. Uh, Tom's yelling and shit, but there's almost a sense of not melody, but it's just more accessible. So Slayer is what did it for me. That was the gateway. And from Slayer, I think I discovered In Flames and Death around the same time, which for extreme music, especially the later period Death stuff, that's about as accessible as it's going to get for like extreme music, death metal, whatever. The album that really got me, well, there's two albums that got me to where I really started appreciating the sound and the art form of like extreme vocals. Spiritual Healing by Death and The Jester Race by In Flames. I think before that, you mentioned Pantera. Pantera was a good gateway drug. I still think that Phil, as far as mixing melodic vocals and extreme vocals, he's the best ever. And when he screams, there's something going on. He was born with a special mechanism, and I'm sure he's worked very hard to get where he is vocally, and especially where he was like in the 90s. But I think some people are just born with a mechanism that sounds cool, and he's got that for sure. So yeah, the Pantera stuff is a gateway. Slayer, I would say check out like Symbolic by Death, that album, because it's kind of just like traditional metal riffs, and if you like prog, that's super proggy. And Chuck is screaming, doing death metal vocals, but I don't know, there's emotion in there. I'm with you as far as like, if it's all just gutturals and it's like that monotone, just reverbed out, like guttural nonstop, just like it just almost distracts from the music. And I don't even really listen. It's hard for me to listen to newer death metal at all anymore, even though I'm going to be talking about a newer death metal album with all pretty much guttural, reverbed out vocals. But just try to hear like, yeah, start with Symbolic and Spiritual Healing by Death. I would say Jester Race by In Flames. There's a lot of emotion in the vocals on Jester Race, and they're death metal vocals, but you can hear you hear a lot of pain and a lot of feeling in it. That's probably one of my favorite death metal vocal performances, actually. I'm going to have J Dawg fans eviscerating me saying it's not even death metal, but from there, I would get into like, I don't know, listen to Blackwater Park by Opeth too, because the death metal stuff is just kind of sprinkled in there. And Mike's a great, great, great singer, but also a great death metal singer. And then for like the really, really extreme stuff, Malevolent Creation, Retribution, those are some of my favorite death metal vocals. Because he doesn't sound like he's doing a proper death metal technical performance. He sounds like an escaped lunatic that's like on a killing spree or something. And I think Barney from Napalm Death is one of the best extreme vocalists. It almost sounds like there's two people screaming at the same time. Again, I think he was just born with like a very special mechanism. And I actually like the later Napalm Death stuff a lot. And I think it's more accessible than the early stuff. So maybe like Utilitarian by Napalm Death. If you are a person that has deep-seated anger and, emotional issues, extreme music will resonate much easier. So I feel like people who have been through super traumatic stuff, or people who, like struggle with anger and aggression and stuff like that. And I think that's why it's a male dominated thing, especially extreme music is shocker, I'm going to get canceled for this, but there are differences between men and women generally speaking. And men are, I'm stating the obvious here, but men traditionally and generally speaking are more aggressive and angrier and have more testosterone and stuff like that. So I feel like if you're not an angry person and you haven't been traumatized severely by life, maybe this type of music doesn't click as much. But man, when I was a teenager, I had a lot of energy and a lot of stuff that needed to be burned out of me, and that's what I use extreme music for. So I hope that helps. Uh, I got one more question, which is going to be the album of discussion, which is Ashen by Phrenelith for all you extreme music fans. Guy from India, sorry, I forgot your name and I just erased your message, but I wouldn't start with this album. I would not start with this Phrenelith album, but I do like it. Before we get to that, we have this new ongoing series, best riffs of every year since 1970. We're on 1971. This is part 2. See if this sumbitch is working. Yeah. Pick a riff from Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. I can't, there's a few. I mean, you can literally just pick a riff from the album. And I can't pick one, but my choices would be between these 3, I guess, or 4. Into the Void, or the next riff. That one, or what's the other one? That one's pretty good. All right, so it's gonna be like 5. Children of the Grave, pick a riff from that. But if I had to pick one, I don't think there is a heavier riff in existence in 1971 than this one. So yeah, I would say that I believe they call it the bridge. We would call it the breakdown nowadays, I think. But that riff, I'm going to have to pick that riff from Children of the Grave, the super duper duper heavy one. Because the thing about Sabbath is like, with every album, they're writing a riff that's heavier than anything that's ever existed. So on Black Sabbath, it would probably be the riff from Black Sabbath. On Paranoid, it would be Electric Funeral, maybe. On Master of Reality, I think it would be that riff. And you have to understand that, like, with each of those riffs, they're inventing either like a new genre of music, subgenre of music, or they're inventing like future bands' entire catalogs. So, like, that riff from Children of the Grave to me invented like Carnivore, Trouble, Typo Negative, Crowbar, I Hate God. I think they invented the I Hate God style on Paranoid with the riff I played last episode from Iron Man. But you get what I'm saying. That's why it's like I want to go into other bands' catalogs, and I think maybe by like 73 or 75 we'll get into like Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and stuff. But for the first half of the 70s, if you're picking a favorite riff or a heaviest riff, and you're into metal, it has to be Black Sabbath. So those are my nominees. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Heaviest riff or best riff or your favorite riff of 1971. But those are mine. Also, write me at bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Ask me questions. This podcast is way easier to do when you guys are asking me questions. dude, before we get to this Phrenelith album, Brent is no longer in Mastodon. Insane. Uh, I don't know what to say about it, man. You can replace just about anybody. There's like I can only think of a few people in the world, in metal bands that I would say that you can't replace him. And he's one of them. Like I got no personal feelings about him, but we all know, he's like kind of a wild card or whatever. Been through a lot of crazy shit, always kind of like off the wall and stuff. And I've talked on this podcast a lot about how like somebody's playing style and writing style and just their whole thing. Sometimes if you're looking at somebody with like a generational talent and a style, like a playing style that is completely off the fucking wall, left field, unique, powerful, insanely expressive and incendiary, you're not going to get that out of a well-adjusted, quote, normal person. More often than not, the people that are able to play like that are like they're expressing their personality. And so if you have a truly like once in a generation wild guitar player like that, who literally just like kind of invented his own thing. And again, it's a bunch of different styles thrown in a blender, but it can only come out of that guy. And I saw they got a YouTuber to fill in, which makes me think the whole thing was kind of like heat of passion kind of deal. I'm sure that they've been building up to stuff for a long time. I don't know any specifics about it. I don't want to talk on that, but it was kind of a surprise, man. It was a surprise, but it wasn't. Like if you're knowledgeable about Mastodon and the whole situation, we all know that guy's kind of like a wild card, but it's still just kind of shocking how it went down. And they got a YouTuber to replace him, which I understand. I think that Bill literally like hit the guy up and was like, "Can you learn 17 Mastodon songs like right now?" So you're gonna have to go to a YouTuber for that, you know. But and I don't know the YouTuber guy, but as the YouTuber guy, does he have the same fire and fucking full blown insanity required to really uh again, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast. It's one thing playing notes. It's one thing playing everything quote unquote right or wrong or whatever. But I have to say, and no like disrespect, no, not trying to put the Maloikia or whatever on Mastodon, but I just don't think you can replace that guy. I don't know, the stuff between his right hand and his left hand and his brain, and his attitude and his life experience and his pain and his whatever that like wanderlust thing that all the best dudes have. You're not going to replace that with a YouTuber. And I know they're probably just putting a band-aid on it right now. And no disrespect to the YouTube guy either. Like only a fool would say no to that, right? Man, I like every Mastodon album to varying degrees. When their first album came out, it like completely blew my mind. I think I was 14. And I've been a fan of them ever since. It's one of those things like the Coen brothers or William Friedkin or dude, whoever, like Theo Vaughn. Like there's just certain people where you're a fan of them. And it doesn't matter if the Coen brothers make a movie that you don't like that much. It doesn't matter if Theo Vaughn has a set that you don't like that much or a podcast that you don't like that much. There's just certain people like Dimebag Darrell. I didn't like the Damage Plan album at all. Does that mean that I'm not a fan of him for life? Hell no. Like he can do whatever he wants. You're a fan of the person. And I'm a huge, huge fan of Mastodon as a band and the people and just everything they represent. I think they're kind of the last of the Mohicans when it comes to like doing something really wild and weird and becoming like pretty popular, but also managing to stay really true to yourself artistically and not really compromise on that. And I don't know that that is possible anymore. I think they got in at the end of that potentially. As much as I don't like Knocked Loose, I think people seem to feel that way about Knocked Loose, and I can see that too. It's like the Pantera thing where the more popular you get, you just keep getting heavier and less accessible, but it like keeps working. I respect that. So I don't know, maybe it is still possible, but I don't want to I don't want to say Mastodon can't continue without Brent because I'm sure they'll figure it out. Uh, but I'm hoping the YouTuber thing is just like putting a band-aid on it right now because they need to get a guy that drives, has motorcycles and has been in fist fights and all that sort of thing. And I'm not being facetious. Like to play like that, I think you have to have that. Um, I could see Matt Pike maybe doing it. I would give it a shot for sure. I would not say I'm anywhere near as good a guitar player as him, but if I'm only learning stuff, like I can learn anything. I learned Sales of Charon or however you say it by Scorpions. So I'm pretty sure I could figure it out. Um I'm just like I'm this podcast has turned into me putting in applications for bands, you know. But no, I wish them all the best, man. I've always loved that band. Like I said, whether I love some records more than others or whatever, it just doesn't matter. I just respect what they do so much and appreciate that band so much. And I'm sure they will figure it out. And I wish all the best for Brent Hinds too, man. I think it's bizarre to have potentially the best riff writer of a generation, Bill, potentially the best drummer of a generation, Ron, and potentially the best lead guitar player, Brent, all in one band. Yes, there are people who are technically more astounding and shit on YouTube or whatever, but I'm talking about like dudes in a band really actually doing it, touring, putting out records. That's a different thing. That's a totally different thing. Um, and I just think it's astounding that all those guys found each other. And I'm glad that it lasted for 25 years. And I'm sorry to see it ending, but I wish them all the best. Okay, Josh from Michigan. Uh yeah, I've been talking more about new music. People have been like, if you don't think there's new music coming out, you're not looking. And I'm like, well, that's what I said. I'm not looking. I'm working on a record. Mentally, I'm trying to be in 1984 or 1986. So I know there's new music coming out that's good. I've been talking about it a little bit more. Just talked tonight, talking Awake, uh, talked about the Mean Mistreater record. But yeah, I'm intentionally avoiding new music. Dummies, you fucking J Dawg listeners, man. Open up your ears. Take the shit out of your ears and put it in your mouth and shut the fuck up and listen, you know? But anyway, yeah, people been writing in about new music. Josh, I'm not referring to you, by the way. I actually have met Josh. You're a good guy. But like somebody was yelling at me that I'm like I'm a fucking neckbeard, like, you know, talking like a middle-aged neckbeard or something. Um, oh, and they said for somebody they kind of backhanded complimented me for somebody with musical ability and creativity, you sure are talking like a whatever. And I'm like, well, maybe did you ever consider the fact that because I have a certain degree of musical knowledge or ability, that's why I hate all this new music that's coming out because it fucking sucks. And if you know about writing songs and riffs, do you know it sucks? Do you ever think about that? Okay, starting to sound like the dog, dude. Josh has recommended Ashen by Phrenelith. Um, yeah, dude's from Denmark. It's like the main guy from Undergang, which is a pretty cool band. I like Phrenelith even more, man. This is a good record. I have a hard time listening to modern death metal because there's just too much of it. There's too much of it without any of it like really needing to exist, and not a lot of it has any qualities that make it stand out or make it memorable at all. And I have a hard time wrapping my head around like super fanatical like fans of new death metal. I almost think it's more of just like a wanting to be a part of like a social club than it is actually loving the music. I can understand being a fan of old death metal and being obsessed with that because all the bands sound completely different. All the early 90s death metal bands, the vocalists all sound different. The songs are all different. I mean, everything. Like you can, in 30 seconds, you can tell not even in 5 seconds, you can tell if you're listening to Obituary or Deicide or Entombed or Pestilence or whatever. So I get being like obsessed with all that because it's such a rich tapestry of music to appreciate and styles and sounds and artwork and everything. All this shit today, I really don't understand how a person can just listen to new death metal. I would be bored out of my fucking mind. Like my brain does something where if I've been hearing that like monotone guttural vocal in like the new production for too long, it goes silent. It almost goes silent. My brain gets so bored that it goes somewhere else to where it's like I'm not even, it's like selective hearing or something like that. But anyway, that being said, thank you, Josh, for sending me a record that I actually enjoyed listening to. That's a new death metal record. It reminds me at times of Ulcerate a little bit. It has the weird chimey, chorusy guitar parts, and I love what I guess you would call like open drone strings. I do it a lot, and I never get tired of hearing it. I never get tired of writing riffs with the open drone strings. Usually it's like the top two or three. And I never get tired of hearing it, especially if it's like multi-tracked guitars with chorus and chimey, pretty shit on it in the midst of like something super heavy. I love that. And Phrenelith does that a lot. The vocals are good for modern death metal vocals. They kept me engaged enough to like finish the album, which is like a miracle, I'm telling you. So they must be good. And he mixes it up. He mixes up the highs and lows and that sort of thing. It's not all just like super guttural stuff. Yeah, it's well written. It's got songs. The whole album kind of has a cohesive vibe to it as well. So I will recommend it as much as I am just like worn out doesn't even begin to describe my feelings on modern death metal. Like I am to the point that I just won't listen to it. So I don't know why I even put this on, other than the fact that Josh, I got a good vibe from you when we met. So thank you, because I did enjoy it, and I've even listened to it more than once. So all you assholes complaining, there's your new music. Yeah, that album's good. I do like that album. There's been 4 or 5 albums, despite my best attempts at not paying any attention to newer music. There's been about 4 or 5 albums this year that have been good enough to break me out of that. But for the most part, I'm trying to stay in the cave and channel these riffs that are like 84 to 86, which I'm having some pretty good luck with lately. So Spirit Adrift is coming back May 31st. Get your tickets at spiritadrift.com. Let's make it special, man. If you can't attend the show, please, if you're a fan of the band or you're a fan of the podcast, anything helps, man. Post the flyer in your story. Tell some friends that live in Texas or whatever. And let's make it special. That's all I want to do anymore. It's stuff that's special and meaningful and fun. That's it. There's no point in doing anything else. All right. See you next week and see you in person May 31st. Peace out.